Let me first say a real warm welcome to all of you, to all of us. The new organizational structures are a big question mark, are something that we're really trying to get a better sense for, and how they can transform with the content that we see that needs to be addressed. Mansi is an incredible human being who dedicated her work really to make a change, the impact, and help people to adapt to the changes that are necessary for us to evolve. She also brings two different cultures together. On one hand, India, on the other hand, the Netherlands. You cannot be a conscious leader without being a conscious human being. And probably that applies to conscious organization as well. It's hard to be a conscious organization without a conscious leader. What is conscious business? And what is so different about this type of business compared to any other mainstream practices that we see in the business environment today?
So conscious business is a business which is not only focusing on profit, where profit is not the goal, but they are businesses which really know that profit is just a medium and the impact needs to be on the people and the planet. Businesses have a bigger reason of being, and that's not to make profit. There are many businesses already in the path of doing good. But what conscious business does really beautifully as a business model, or a holistic economic business model, which is what we promote, is bring all those different pieces together. Because many businesses are focused on one part, maybe just the people or just the organizational systems within the business, or they are focused on, let's say, carbon footprint reduction or other kind of clean ways of being. But how do you marry all of those things and still be profitable, still add value? So it's beyond profit. So it's in that way a very powerful way of being, which is what we advise.
What are the qualities that to a conscious organization, the culture brings, and what do you mean by culture?
Culture for us is really the heartbeat of an organization. It's connections, the trust, which are built within the employees. It's the way the employees are engaged and are part of the overall purpose of the organization. It's really about finding those commonalities which are part of a culture that includes trust, that includes authenticity, that includes caring for each other, transparency, integrity, learnings, and an empowered, healthy, happy set of employees. Our business model comes from the global movement of conscious capitalism. Conscious business as a term seemed much more appealing, but also much more doable and more sort of inviting to a business, because it's less conflicting, let's put it like that. So when we talk about conscious business, it intrigues people. The first question is, what is a conscious business, of course, and when is a business conscious? Well, the answer is never, because you can always do better. But it's all about being on the spectrum. Where are you in that whole matrix of being totally not conscious and being amazingly perfect? Organization is indeed only as conscious as its leaders, but a business exists for a reason. It started for finding a solution to something which was a need in the market, and that's around that is the purpose. What happens when a business ceases to exist? Purpose is a living thing. It shifts with time. So it requires constant conversation. It requires
Awareness.
having indeed awareness, having a pulse on the heartbeat of what is happening in the market. How are we present with our stakeholders? What's the need? So it's a constant development. And businesses really focus on doing good and doing it well and taking care of their employees, taking care of their suppliers, their other stakeholders, really following their purpose. The profit just comes.
With us is also our Ecocivilisation wing for Spain, Bianca Dragomir. She has been named the Cluster Manager of the Year by the European Commission 2016. She is coming from two different cultural backgrounds, Romania and Spain, and also trying to build on the positive aspects of both cultures. What is a cluster and why are they so important for the overall development of a society?
Clusters in general are networks that unite different types of stakeholders like business, all kinds, small, big corporates, government, and other ecosystem stakeholders. Basically, let's call them networks, value-added networks in a particular industry and in a particular region across Europe. And we have about 3,000 clusters, industrial clusters nowadays across all countries of the European Union, and 1 in 4 jobs in Europe are actually in clusters. Clusters are really relevant because also, especially the small and medium-sized businesses, the SMEs in a cluster, they are more, they create more jobs. These are better paid, and also they create more patents. So therefore, more innovation to market.
How would you describe the organizational behavior of a cluster?
Clusters agglutinate multiple types of stakeholders to create multiple spreads of innovation experience on the ground and to affect change in multiple layers or multiple levels by these interactions. And through these interactions, I hope and I want to believe that most of the clusters create meaningful interactions between all their stakeholders so that they actually create value on the ground. Within a cluster, within these ecosystems, the business they have a texture to suit on and operate together and create innovation systemically because they integrate all these multiple stakeholders, multiple tentacles, and integrate this multiple voice, they affect change and they affect change systemically. And I think that this nowadays, given the times that we are living, where systemic change is key and it's actually crucial for our survival. And let's not forget that basically clusters, when we speak about clusters, we speak about industrial clusters, different, actually industry, and that actually entails the power of creating real change on the ground, whether we speak about energy or food or about plastic industry. No matter what industry we deal with, there are these tools, smart tools if you want, that are smart plugs for Europe's industrial modernization, I think, and we should make use and constant use and better use of them.
What does it take to encourage clusters to really think and act in this spirit, innovative spirit?
Clusters have leverage and they have a pivotal role in shifting the industry forward. Why? Because they don't defend a single interest of a single company. They defend the interest of a sector. They are the place and space where we experiment, where we test our ways forward into the future, where startups connect with bigger corporates to scale up and do it in a way that is meaningful. Clusters are these neutral entities that articulate, that integrate these multiple needs actually, so that they can affect change on the ground. We are living, especially in these times that we are living, we need more speed and more scale, but we need to do it in a way that is conscious, to go back to Mansi's input, in a way that is purpose driven and actually affect change at the same time. It's not about speed and scale, no matter what, is about speed and scale and purpose. We just need to create this change. Now, it's easier to create a change when we all go together, when change, and we all see that change is happening systemically lately. Industry is partnering in completely new ways already for a few years now, and change is happening, and we need someone to shake this change and to integrate a multiple voice. This pie is big enough for all of us, or it's even too big for all of us. The space of opportunity is tremendous nowadays. They put in place a multidimensional leadership, a polycentric leadership. If industry and clusters put this as at the top of their work, then change happens with speed and with scale. And that's what we need actually to get to those targets. Europe has a competitive advantage here because it has these clusters, 3,000, that create a ripple effect around them in the territory. And if we can connect, make the most of them and actually interconnect them, then we create overlapping ripples of change across Europe, and we will make it matter.
Purpose, leadership, culture, stakeholders. Do you use within your networks already this expression, conscious business, conscious leadership? Is this something that is industry already ready for?
I would say, and that is the power of a leader, and that is the power of the shared leadership. Actually, when you create this shared leadership, having already the purpose at the core, or the consciousness, or at least heading into that direction, right? We are all on the journey of becoming more conscious and to place more purpose at the core of what we are doing. I think when you are just holding that space and whatever you are doing, I think that creates magic around you.
We are cooking together things for the future. So there's definitely cross pollination, which is going to happen.
Alexander and Stefan, they're very two special people. Alexander is pretty much all around the world behind any kind of meaningful system change initiative. And Stefan, a long-lasting friend who is also a very devoted system science practitioner.
What did I hear? It's what I sensed, what I felt, what I see is hope. What we are doing together, because it's exactly not just the individuals, but what we're doing together. And the beautiful dialogue and the exchange here, the listening and the sharing, the co-creation of meaning, the resources we draw on in our experiences, and how we are weaving that together to make sense and to inform where we are and how we are. We can share words, we can share the concepts, we can share the ideas, wonderful and important, because that's where we communicate. And at the same time, the deeper levels of communication that are about how do we, as I like to say it, how do we human well? How do we human with each other, both individually and collectively? And I think that's exactly what we're looking at. What comes up for me is the difference between making change and curating change. Making change is like, I'm going to go in and make something happen. It's, as Mansi was saying, it's kind of very masculine, yang kind of way. I'm going to make something happen. It's kind of forceful. And on the other side, there's curating change. So how do you curate the conditions that foster thrivable change, that foster this kind of change? Fearless, multidimensional, polycentric leadership. That's a nice way of putting it, but that's the kind of what we need, right? We need that kind of framing, and this can create ripples of transformation rather than imposing transformation. Being on the spectrum of conscious leadership, consciously being awake to this, that's the most important beginning. If you're on the spectrum of conscious leadership, you are awake to these things, then there's a sensitivity. There's a big difference in participatory leadership from a systems perspective between having a collection of participating individuals who are all participating and having their input and sharing but that's different than creating an emergent interbeing. There's a responsibility also of being part of the collective interbeing. This idea of interbeing in participatory leadership, I think, is different from, and not always naturally there, from the kind of participation in change process where you have a collection of individuals who are all participating. but there's no sense of interbeing, no sense of Ubuntu. The difference between business and organizational community, network, cluster, and ecosystem. What's a business community, a business network, a business cluster, or a business ecosystem? And how are they related? And what's the ideal?
The new organizational structures that emerge from these new values are quite under pressure still. For some reasons, it's not about value systems, but sometimes it is really that we can't implement them in the current way we are working. Like very practical questions. Does a polycentric leadership actually work within the current structures? These are the questions I'm facing quite daily as obstacles, because we are not prepared yet. We haven't yet made it a common practice.
All networks, value-added networks, as long as they add value, they are meaningful. Everything starts with the right intention and the clear intention, which is basically the purpose, right? And all magic starts there. But we do need to create structures. We need to make the most of this in order to make it happen. To simplify, networks, clusters, innovation ecosystems, associations, a little bit in the same basket with different particularities, with different hues, but actually if they are relevant, if they create meaningful value to multiple stakeholders, and if they create innovation to market. I do think that more and more people, society, companies, governments are aware of this, that we need to do it collectively. And I think that's the beauty, again, of clusters or ecosystem, of running an ecosystem, of being part of an ecosystem, because you can place the purpose at the core, you can place the intention, and everybody around it self-organizes in a way to push it forward. We need to have fearless leadership and dare to break this, but with empathy, with co-creation, with allowing the space for everybody to come together.
When you talk about a purposeful business or an organization or a team, it is not that everybody's purpose is exactly the same. However, your purposes as an individual needs to align, or at least in the same direction as the bigger purpose of the organization. And as long as that alignment, you have found it doesn't have to be exactly the same. It's not just about matching the purpose with the purpose. It's also about checking the authenticity of how much of that is real and how much of that makes sense to you. And how does that change as you change and evolve as an individual? How does that shift?
Or one of the few constant and most important tasks of a leader is to connect employees to the purpose. And this needs to be constant attitude and process. We need more leadership and less management.
Where do you start? In most organizational change, one expects the CEO to take the lead and say, let us go this way, and take the people with her and go there. But in other organizations, and that's also based on my experience in the commission, the change actually came from below. The grassroots mobilized and eventually created enough momentum to take at least part of the organization with it. So in terms of necessary conditions for the transition, what in your experience is the most effective way? Or are we back at what Mansi said, there are many roads to socialism?
Can start from anywhere. A lot of the conscious leadership, purposeful leadership begins with a crisis, individual crisis somebody faces, or a company crisis, which sort of leads people to change. It can start from the CEO, but it has also been triggered by a cultural change or by a whole team of people who started to just embody and model a new way of being.
It can start everywhere. It should start everywhere. And it's very diverse. It's very different. I don't think there are formulas here. I do think that one needs to have the awareness and create awareness around, so that these voices are being heard.
Not one structure is perfect, and there are always trade-offs that needs to be made, but this requires transparency. So the transparent decisions and communication of these trade-offs are very crucial, but are still lacking in many cases in practice. Do you agree that the leadership is in general not yet enough aware about the importance of the transparency?
There's no one size fits all, that's for sure, when we come about across leadership or structures. And I think we need to be aware and realistic with that, right? I think that genuine leadership, genuine intention is something that people feel. I'm talking again from my own ecosystem leadership or my own work. I think people feel the energy, right? People feel the purpose that you put, and people feel it. And just like we feel people. When people follow, is that they feel that they resonate. Sometimes it's not even, most of the times, it's not even conscious.
Transparency is, I think, one of the fundamental values which are needed for an organization or leadership to be conscious. The whole idea of having a conscious organization or system or team is breaking down those power systems and opening things up. And that can only be done by sharing authentically from a place of not hiding things.
More than do, it's the be. How do you create a good space for people to engage in? We are to engage with fearless, multidimensional, polycentric leadership combined with empathy. You're doing all birthing roles at the same time: midwifing, mothering, and being born.
So many really valuable points have been shared, and I'm sure that this is not the last time we have the discussion on conscious society, conscious business, conscious leadership seem to be the key word in the transformative process into something that is more worth of humanity. Organizations need to change along with awareness and challenges. And they don't do that by themselves. They need conscious leaders. Collective efforts are the solution for more and more complex situations. Conscious means holistic, and it is necessary or even essential for our future evolution and even survival. Where does it start? It starts with awareness and with the be, with how do I serve? And it is driven by awakened people. Keep dreaming, keep engaging, and never give up, because we are the change we are looking for.